Now the last paper of this whole conference is from Mr. Brian MINIHAN, Assistant Librarian of the Hong Kong Baptist University Library, entitled Seeing the Trees Through the Forest, Centralizing Collection Management at Academic Libraries in Hong Kong. Brian is the Assistant Librarian of the Collection Management and Development section at the Hong Kong Baptist University. Before coming to Hong Kong BU in 2010, he was a research associate at the University of San Francisco's Ritchie Institute of Chinese Western Cultural History and a systems librarian and innovative interfaces. Brian? Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Tall? I'm tall. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here and talk to you all today. A lot of what I'd like to talk about is related to what Elliot spoke about and also, of course, what Peter spoke about with Jura. In any case, it's a peculiar title, this paper, but I like language a lot, so if you'll bear with me, I'd like to talk a little bit about language. There is a phrase called can't see the forest for the trees, and actually it's more of a British way of saying it. For where I'm from, we'd say can't see the forest through the trees. And what it means is to focus on small details and to fail to understand the larger plans or principles. So I'm a collection management librarian, and I became interested in why libraries collaborate on some projects and not others. This kind of fascinated me. As we know here in Hong Kong, we do a lot of collaboration in some areas, but there are other areas which we don't quite do that so much. And so I was very interested in that. We do a lot of reciprocal arrangements. So we have the lowest form of collection management, essentially just loaning out what you've already purchased with books and articles. As far as acquiring and storing resources, we also do a bit of that. And Peter spoke about Jura, about storing the materials, and Patty briefly mentioned Errol buying ebooks. And we also do a fair bit of purchasing of, of database materials. So, what's missing? I'm going to go back to language again and look at the definition of to collaborate. So it's to work jointly on an activity or a project. But if you're like me, you know that working on a project or activity with people does not really mean that it's going to work or to be successful. So perhaps a better word is to cooperate so that you can make sure you get to the end where you want to go. This is where I think history comes into the matter, and why do libraries collaborate? Essentially, I think, as Elliot was saying, we're in the middle of a big historic shift. We know that we can't acquire everything, and we've known this for some time, even before the latest, most remarkable changes have come about. A librarian, Paul Mosier, noted as early as the 1980s that the rise in published material makes it impossible to collect everything. And when you have automation in libraries, then you begin to see what other libraries have. And so you start to think, my God, everyone else has this, whereas before you didn't know this. So this is, I think, what's known as a historical prime mover. And essentially, we're just in the middle of information being made more available that we've never seen before. Let me ask you all something. Did anyone harvest the food that they ate today? Or if you're like me, I didn't build the structure that I live in. I didn't make these clothes. So collaboration is part of being an advanced civilization. The more civilization advances, the more you rely on other people to do the things that you're not so good at. And to be honest, this is where I think collaboration comes into libraries, but we forget that because we just think of saving money. We like the people at the libraries near us, something like that. But it's very important to remember that advanced civilizations rely on each other to accomplish what they need. And the reason why they do this is for efficiency. I'm not going to go into all of this, but you can read my paper, or better yet, their paper. These are Ohio Link librarians. They're probably the best at collaboration with regard to collections. Again, it's efficiency, which is why we really should be doing this. As Elliot said, there's a lot of things that we're doing that probably aren't the most efficient things. This I thought was interesting because this is Joseph Brandon's quote. He made this prediction in the late 90s about what would be important to libraries. And when you talk about trying to envision the future or things, it's very difficult. But it's very interesting how a lot of these are still the things that we talk about and the things that we try to accomplish right now. So when I talk about definitions of words and things, I'm really very interested in how collaboration works, or what makes it successful. And like I say, the same as eating your food or picking out your clothes, finding out where you're going to live. You go through all of these stages without realizing. There's trust, expression, exchange, and history there. This is probably something that should contribute to collaborating in collections. So this is more or less the anti-rationale to ownership. If you don't really necessarily have to own something if you can go through all these stages to collaborate. And these are some interesting factors from a case study on successful and unsuccessful collaboration. So essentially, collaboration in collections is a lot like information literacy. It's such a complex process that you're going through all of these in a moment's time. But we're very smart as humans, and we can do that sort of thing. This, I think, is very interesting. The barriers to collaboration are listed as sacrifice of autonomy and risk aversion. And if you'll allow me, I just want to read a small paragraph which is specific to Asia, because a lot of times I think there's not a lot of literature on libraries in Asia, but I found this description of an academic library in mainland China 10 years ago very fascinating. These are two authors from Luoyang. And they say, although the necessity of information resource sharing is generally recognized, our libraries and information institutions are still burdened with traditional thoughts and customs like reluctance to share with others. People aim for the big and complete and want to keep up with the Joneses. There is still a mentality to hold on to one's own stock and to share it with others. I feel like you cannot collaborate if you don't share information, and that's a key to that. However, if you're worried about taking risk or sacrificing your own autonomy, you may not go through that stage. So back to Hong Kong. The two areas of collaboration I really wanted to think about are, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead a bit. But in any case, in Hong Kong we are somewhat lucky. Our university budgets have increased, but they haven't kept up with the price of cereals. So serials costs have gone up 400% in the last 25 years. There's two number ones there. Okay. In any case, so these are the two pressing issues, I believe. So if you have serials budgets going up 400% and you're in a small place like Hong Kong, these are probably the areas where you want to collaborate most. You want to maximize your efficiency to meet your users' needs. So I'd like to take a look at how we're doing on that. In purchasing serials, we do collaborate, although at my institution, Hong Kong Baptist University, only 44 out of the 220 databases are purchased through consortial purchasing. And why that may be is that our consortial, there's no central allotment of funds. So there's no impetus to put in funds to have one pool of money to negotiate with vendors. Also, the guidelines stipulate that any institution can opt out and continue negotiating with a vendor. So if you have collaboration in some degree, but there's a way out, and there's no real impetus to centralize everything, your success may not be as great. As far as print goes, Peter talked about JURA quite a bit. JURA has been, I think, like many of the other folks mentioned, it's been kind of a watershed because we've started talking about our collections a lot. However, whenever it's not October, then we don't talk about them. We're doing other things. So I think it's limited to storage. I think it needs to increase to other areas. We do share a common approval plan vendor, but we don't share a common approval plan. And as I said, we don't really talk about collection development plans, retention policies, any of that, unless it's, we're talking about the specifics of storage. A little bit about my institution, Hong Kong Baptist University. It is a liberal arts, sort of a liberal arts college. It's much smaller than Chinese University, but we have quite a lot of print volumes. I did a comparison with our print holdings and the average in a very comprehensive report in American Library Association, and my institution has 3 times more print volumes per FTE than those surveyed. And as you know, Hong Kong is very, very, very crowded. So we have all of that in about 8,000 square meters. So we don't really have a lot of options at the institutional level. So faced with that, we don't have a lot of choice. Last year, in implementing a continuous deselection policy, I started to try to, essentially to review a lot of our print collection in a more efficient manner. And in doing that, I wanted to take into account the other 7 libraries' holdings without thinking of common storage. So in doing that, I kind of came up with like an on-the-fly scenario. And essentially, I felt like I was engaging in solo deduplication. So I was, performing deduplication on behalf of the other 7 institutions, or as I called it, cowboy collaboration. But in any case, because we don't have any communication apparatus, I was trying to keep weeding schedules and keep ahead of Peter's picture there of all of the print spilling all over the place. And essentially, I just came up with a small, very, very basic scenario where if all 8 libraries had the item, I felt it may be a core title, we may want to hold on to it. 5 to 7, I thought the holdings really shouldn't matter. And 3 to 4, those I would usually discard right away, and of course the last copy and second last I would keep for later review. So this is certainly not a very efficient method of collection management on a larger scale, but you know, this is something that I've started doing when performing collection review inadvertently. So I don't have any big future answers to any questions on how to do this better. And I'm practical enough to know that it's very, very difficult to really get a collaborative collection management going. However, I do know at my institution, collection management is pretty new. So first of all, we need to know our collection, and we need to articulate the areas that we want to specialize in from a local point of view. And then I believe we'd be ready to, you know, to work with others on the print management. So for the other libraries, I would say we would need just similar sorts of things: knowledge about local collections and trust and open communication. So, to conclude, instead of seeing the trees in the forest, as the title says, I think we should see the forest for the trees here in Hong Kong. Thank you.